welcome to Pursue the Pull, the podcast that is geared towards helping people who are looking for a career change or for those who want to pursue their dreams and start their own business. Now, how do we differ from all of the other inspirational podcasts out there? Well, what we do is we interview people from a range of different industries. So if you want to start your own business and start setting up a restaurant, or if you want to set up a software company or a tech company, or if you just want some mindset preparation advice, we are here to give you all the highs, all the lows, and most importantly, the truth. Now, we are one group, one community, and we have all of the answers. I'm your host, Stacey Bevan, and today I have an amazing guest. I am so excited. So, her name is Dr. Margaret Cochran, and she is a psychologist, licensed clinical social worker, life coach, and hypnotherapist who helps people unlock their potential by integrating psychology, hypnotherapy, and energy work. So, first of all, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Margaret. I can't wait for this interview.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great. So look, before we go into the questions, I'm just going to give a little bit of background into what it is that you do. So, as mentioned, you are a transpersonal psychologist, licensed clinical social worker, life coach, hypnotherapist, and also an educator, social media personality, and author with more than 25 years of clinical experience. Now, you are dedicated to the health and well-being of the people you work with, and you seamlessly interweave traditional ego psychology, transpersonal psychology, and energy psychology, giving your clients every tool possible to achieve their goals and make their dreams a reality. Now, you have got some major achievements. So you have been featured in a range of media outlets throughout the country, including BBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox affiliates, Healthline, Yahoo Life, Total Beauty, Media News Group, Mercury News, and so much more. Now, in addition to the Huffington Post, you are also a regular on NBC, Sacramento's morning show, and hosted radio programs such as Mental Health Moments and others. Now, this is amazing, and there's so much more that you've done, but I just want to get into all of this, and I just want to know, can you tell me a little bit about your background? Like, how did this all start? How did it all come about?
Where did the magic evolve from? Well, actually, I started my professional life as an educator, and my first master's degree was in education. And I realized as I was teaching students that more and more people were coming to me with things much bigger than, memorizing multiplication tables or, figuring out geography. And I felt called, I felt pulled to get yet more education and move forward and be able to have the tools to help them solve those problems.
Wow. Okay. So this career that you what it is that you actually do now. So when you started, was there like a transitional stage for you where you were maybe working for a practice or maybe working for someone else and then you went into this, or did you just go straight into this and start doing this for yourself?
Well, I plunge in head first. That's just how it is with me. But, what you're doing is so valuable for people. And I want to roll back a little bit and talk about how people find their sweet spot.
Oh, tell us.
So it's a fascinating thing. By the way, as a child, my nickname was Doc.
Oh,
People have been coming to me with problems and concerns since I was little. And
wow.
when I didn't know something, I'd run to the library and look it up and come back. Yeah, I was almost killed in the fourth grade for figuring out that Johnny Appleseed was actually schizophrenic. That was a tough day on the recess playground, I can tell you. Anyway, the best place to look if you're attempting to find your sweet spot is what you were doing, what you were preoccupied with or felt passionately about when you were 7 or 8 years old. Look back to that point in your life, and you will find You will find your gift, you will find your calling, you will find your career. Now, here's the thing though. Often we get talked out of our career. For example, my mother
Mm.
said to me, Margaret, all you ever do is talk. You'll
Yeah.
never make a living talking. Well, guess what I do? I make a living talking, right? So, but she thought that was impractical and silly and wouldn't work out. So I came up with an alternative, which was to be an educator, which is talking, right? That's
Yeah.
part of the pedagogy, but it was a talking 9 to 5
Yeah.
with insurance and all those good things, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't really where I belonged. That wasn't my sweet spot. That wasn't my spiritual practice. That's really what my work is spiritual practice. So slowly I came to realize, no, I got to do this. And it was scary.
Yeah.
There were roadblocks and hoops to jump through and all kinds of goofy nonsense. But in the end, your spiritual calling prevails. You will find your way, or you'll be really unhappy. And there are
Yeah.
a lot of people who get stuck in that trap of I have to do this kind of thing because that's what I was told I was supposed to do, and they're miserable every day they go to work.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a part of the reason I do this podcast. And it's interesting what you just said previously about thinking back to when you were 7 or 8. I do that a lot. And I remember when I was that age, and it's so true, it's so weird that you've said this because when I was that age, I used to line up my teddy bears, sit them on the floor, and teach them. So pretend I had a classroom and now I love public speaking. I love training. I used to do a lot of training for Google
There
and
you
stuff like
go.
that. So yeah, that is so true. So that is a really good point. But you mentioned obviously this transition period that you went through and you said that it was scary and so on. A lot of people get stuck there. So a lot of questions that I get are people that have a lot of fear and they want to start their own business or they want to take that leap. Some people know what they want to do. Some people are a bit unsure. So what advice would you give to those people? Because it is scary and it took me a good couple of years before I even started to try and look into working for myself. So, can you just explain that a little bit and your experience with that?
Well, first of all, I bet you had the smartest bears on the block. That's just saying that. Now, as far as the other part, if you'll forgive me, I'm a brain girl. I'm a self-confessed brain girl. So I want to talk about the brain a little bit. In
Go.
very gross simplistic terms, you have a left brain and a right brain. And the left brain is the part that does logical, linear thinking. And the right brain is the part that's intuitive and more emotional
Yeah.
and creative. So most of us are brought up to believe that the right brain only exists in service of the left.
Okay.
And I would argue the opposite because it's the left that will tell you your passion. It's the left that will tell you your soul. It's right that will show you where you need to go. And then your left brain will say, oh, you can't do that because of this, and because of that, and da 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 da. So my crisis was, I had my teaching license for life. I had my undergrad and my master's degree done, and what most of my peers were doing is buying their first house with a picket fence and having their first kid, and doing all that. And I remember stamping my feet and think, why can't I be like that? Why can't I
Yeah.
just be like that? But my right brain said, no, that's not your path. It's not your path. And so I reached to the other part of me and said, all right, help me structure a way to achieve my dream. Because you have to have structure. You have to have a way, a linear way to get where you're going. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's a little curvilinear, but still linear, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
I reached to the other part of myself and said, all right, what's the next step? Well, okay, you need to get more education. Well, what's the most practical way to do that? And the way that's most appealing to you at this time in your life, got another degree, a master's degree in clinical social work. So then I started going down that road.
Yeah.
Then I went on to clinical psychology. Then I went into transpersonal psychology. So it was an evolution, but always my left brain helped me create the track, but I never lost sight of what my right brain was telling me to do.
Hmm. Wow, that's interesting because I was at a period, and I know that a lot of other people are at this crossroads as well, where as you mentioned, in terms of like, you've got one side telling you to, not do this and it's more logical, and the other side of your brain is like full of ideas and everything else. And it was really difficult. It's difficult for some people to kind of make that switch and stay strong in terms of what it is that they should be doing. So how do you do that? And you also mentioned about, your friends buying the houses and stuff. And that's a difficult time because when, you're an entrepreneur and you're investing money and everything you're making is spending on your business and everyone's got houses at the buying and savings, it's really upsetting, and it was really difficult. That was one thing that was difficult for me to overcome. Like, should I be doing that? And I could have that, but I'm investing in this. So, how do you get your mind to just stay focused? Because it's really difficult, right?
Well, I would say beware of consensual reality. There are, because people were telling me in that early stage of my career, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. You have security. You have a path. Everything's laid out for you. You just, what's wrong with you? That's a question. What's wrong with you? And being able to, again, reference yourself and realize, yeah, there's nothing wrong with me. I just have a different path than you. Now, just for a moment, let's talk about how people see the world. It's basically there are two groups. There's the plenty folks and there's the paucity folks.
Yeah.
Now, the paucity folks live in a world of not enough. So I have to grab onto whatever I can. I have to hold on to it. I don't let go of anything. Anything new is scary. Just, do that. And then the plenty folks say, yeah, well, there's lots of opportunities. It's unlimited. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we see now in the world, so the conflicts is about plenty and paucity, isn't it? Everything has to stay the same. It has to be the way it was when I was comfortable. So you need to change versus no, the only constant in the universe is change. It's the only constant. So, like it or not, you can fist and sput and flush like a toilet, but it's going to happen one way or another. So this was my process of recognizing, okay, change happens. It's okay. I can do it, and I can lead others to do it as well.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned the spiritual aspects. How did that come in? How did you know that this was what you was meant to be doing, that this was your purpose?
Well, it's funny. Since I was little, my nickname has been Doc. People around me, when they were young and they weren't stuck in consensual reality, they figured it out for me and said, "Oh yeah, you're the answer lady. We'll come to you and figure out, if we don't know how to deal with the boy who's being mean to us, or we just had our period and we don't know what to do about that, or all those kinds of things."
Yeah.
And I would often give them answers adults didn't want to talk about, which was their favorite. We'd huddle in a group and I'd say, "Okay, here's the book. Here's the pictures. This is what it all looks like," right?
Yeah.
So, part of that was I had all these wonderful helpers in the form of those other children pointing me where I needed to go. Then I ran into adults who said, "No, you can't do that." And so part of finding that spirituality is finding that child inside you, that beautiful, innocent child who sees the world as an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I mean, one lovely exercise to do is to close your eyes, and when you open them, see the world as brand new, like you've never seen it before. You've never tasted ice cream. You've never had broccoli. You've never seen the sun come up. Everything changes dramatically. Your perspective changes. And you realize what's really important this moment now. Because no matter what planning you're doing, this moment now is where things are going to happen. Out here, we don't know. We'll do our best, right? But this moment now, loving your family, this moment now, playing with the animal companions you may have, this moment now, being with you.
Yeah.
What matters.
Yeah, that is so true. So you also, you've studied a lot, so you've got a lot of knowledge. And, you know, I was speaking to someone the other day and they were saying that entrepreneurship is 80% your mindset and 20% your skills. So, how do we, or how does one prepare their mindset? So, what advice would you give on that? Because it's really important. It's a key part of becoming an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And what advice would you give around mindset and how we can prepare that and get it ready for this journey that we're about to go on, which isn't easy?
Well, uh, first thing is you got to watch out for the language you use.
Okay.
Because language, of course, creates reality.
Mm,
So if we say this is going to be hard, I'm likely to fail, this is going to be a rough trip, this is going to be difficult to do, it will be. If
yeah.
we look at my when I did my PhD, you have to write a thing called a dissertation, which is this big research study thing you have to do. And most graduate students see it as a giant pain in the backside and they hate it and they moan and they throw, they go on and on. I decided I was going to have fun,
Yeah.
and I did. It was a
Mm,
blast. And everyone around me was completely puzzled. Why are you smiling? Why are you so happy? You're writing a dissertation. Why aren't you suffering with the rest of us? I just decided I wasn't going to suffer. I
yeah.
decided I was going to be in the moment, every moment, and have a wonderful time. And I met the most amazing people. I had the most fantastic experiences. And honestly, most people around me were suffering, which is
Yeah.
sad. So the language you use and the beliefs you bring, and
Mm,
that's where I referenced earlier, consensual reality, this set of beliefs that people often have, like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Well, now why would you have cake if you weren't going to eat it? That
yeah.
makes no sense. No sense. Now I have to confess I'm a frosting girl. I'm kind of, but still,
Yeah.
of course you can have your cake and eat it too. But you also have to be sure that you don't expect to have to make every element of the cake yourself, accept help.
Yeah.
Look for ways to make your job easier. You don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel.
Mm,
Find the wheels that already
yeah.
exist as they apply to what you're doing. So, language, mindset, allowing others to help. And believe it or not, one of the most powerful things in the world is being able to give and take.
Mhm.
Many of us are great givers,
Yeah.
but we suck at taking.
Yeah.
And what happens is if when we're not good at taking, that we run out of gas.
Yeah.
We run out of energy and our projects begin to suffer, our joy begins to suffer. So you have to, it's called entropy. If there's more coming out of a system than going in, it's going to
Mhm.
die.
Yeah.
So that balance is so important, especially as an entrepreneur. You have to be sure you have enough coming in. And unfortunately, in many cases, overworking is a badge of honor.
Oh, yeah.
Here's an example. People say things like, "Oh, you've earned that vacation." No, no, you didn't earn it. You deserve a vacation because you're a human being and you need time off. You don't have to
Yeah.
earn it.
Yeah.
Um, it's just silly. But there's a lot, especially here in the States, there's a lot of nonsense about Puritan work ethic and all kinds of garbage like that.
Mhm, mhm.
Not to say that I'm encouraging people not to put effort into what they're doing, but to expend their life force and feel drained and burned out and miserable. No, that's not what it's about.
It's not, is it? Because, you know, early in my journey, I was working, but I was working almost too hard. Like I
Mm.
wasn't stopping. And then I did have a burnout. And
Yeah.
then I kind of relaxed a bit more with it. And I wasn't working as hard. I was just working a bit smarter in terms of what I was doing. And I was delegating. And the more relaxed and laid back I was about it, and I kind of had to let go a bit, the better things evolved. You know, some people think that you just have to keep doing, and the more you do, the quicker you're going to get there as an entrepreneur. But you know, I don't think that's true. So I do agree with your statement on that. Um, but I've got a couple of questions from the audience actually. So I'm going to ask them. Okay,
I
so
love those.
um, someone asked, what does hypnotherapy aid in personal growth? how can they use it to overcome any challenges? And have you had any challenges and how have you overcome them?
Okay.
So I
Well,
think it's a two-part question, but in one.
that's an excellent question, actually. Many people, if we're going to do hypnotherapy work on something they're stuck on or having difficulty with, they'll say, "Oh, I've never been hypnotized. I don't think I can be hypnotized." And I'll say, "Oh, yeah, you have." And I'll say, "What do you mean?" And I'll say, "Well, have you ever been driving a car or been riding in a car, and maybe it was raining and the windshield wipers are going like this, and all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden you realized you were at your destination, you didn't really remember the trip very
Oh,
much?
all the time.
That's a trance." Now,
Wow.
there are levels of trance. Like I do hypnotic anesthesia in the operating room. So that's a very deep level of trance where I can control blood pressure and bleeding and pain and all that. But lighter levels of trance, you put yourself in a state of focus such that it's an incredible working relationship between your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. So I will take you from a place of where you are and then talk you through steps so that when you turn back around to return to this conscious world, you can see everything differently.
Wow.
Suddenly things, oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. In fact, it's funny. Sometimes people will come to my office and they'll say, hey, is that a new painting? Or is that a new? And I'll say, no, I've had that for about 10 years now. And they'll say, really? Never seen that. Okay, but the point is, it tells me they've shifted their horizon of awareness. They're suddenly able to notice things they couldn't notice before. Oh, bless you. One of my dogs just sneezed. Um, one of my favorite hypnotic exercises is something called quantum jumping, where I take people through an experience where they go to a place that's not here or there or anywhere, but there are a million yous, all different iterations of you, different choices you made, who you became, and what you did. And you intuitively pick the door you need to walk through to meet the person you need to meet, who's already solved the problems you have.
Wow.
And you talk to him or her, and you look at him or her, and there's a very spiritual, psychic, emotional melding that happens. And you walk back out not the same person you walked in.
Oh my gosh.
It's
That's
pretty powerful.
incredible. Yeah, that is so powerful. So if you've got like a challenge that you're facing, and there's a lot of challenges that you're facing while you're on your journey through entrepreneurship and you're trying to build this big business, how would you relate that to the challenges? How does it connect? Is it just the fact that you hypnotize, you see things a lot differently, so you're able to deal with things a lot differently, or is there a specific tactic?
Well, the issue is when you're in hypnosis, you've released that left brain, that linear logical part. So the right
Okay.
brain can now become creative and come up with things that you might not normally be able to come up with. And you're able to see things from a different perspective. I'm sure you've heard of many famous writers and musicians who said, yeah, I didn't write that song, it wrote itself.
Yeah.
Or I went to sleep and I woke up. I knew whatever that I couldn't. I've been working on it for days and I couldn't figure it out. And I
Yeah.
went to sleep thinking about it and I woke up and I had the answer. So it's really about letting your brain work with itself. I love brains, they're so cool. And letting your brain work with itself and come up with connections you would not necessarily make if you were moored or mired in some cases in consensual reality. It says, no, there's only one answer. 1 + 1 is 2. That's the end of the story. Don't think past that point.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I've never actually been hypnotized. Well, like you say, I've been driving and then I've been, oh, how did I get here? I wasn't even thinking about it. So that's really interesting, actually. So another question. What strategies do you recommend for those who want to make their dreams a reality and like achieve their goals?
Well, you know, the first thing is to be as specific as possible. Like, for example, someone might say, oh, I want to have my own business. Okay, that's nice. Good. But what business? Who who is your avatar? Who are you appealing to? What kind of life do you want to have as a result of this business? Where would you live? What would your house look like? What kind of country would you live in? How would you dress? How would you talk? All those kinds of things. And you begin to build a world in your mind of that business I want to have.
Yeah.
But it's comprehensive. And the reason why that's so important is because, well, it's kind of like being a magician, a stage musician, right? They get up on, and they have all these cool tricks and they do these things that are seemingly impossible. And they have a ton of help. Have all kinds of people dressed in black, moving things around and, doing this and that, pulling strings. So understanding that you have to have that big dream and you have to have all kinds of helpers. Helpers may be education. Helpers may be a training program. Helpers may be hiring people with specific skills to help your website look a certain way or present yourself a certain way. The other thing is talk to other people who have done this kind of journey. Listen to
Yeah.
what they have to say. Because, we talked about the quantum jumping thing and opening the door and finding that person's, well, those other people have already solved that problem. So how do
Yeah.
they dress? How do they talk? How do they think? How do they look at problem solving? Um, Most people who are confident and full of plenty will not hesitate to help you and support you as you start your journey.
Yeah.
They'll
That
be
is
excited
true.
for you.
Yeah. Yeah. There
Now,
won't be scared.
the people who won't, just stay away. Talk to the hand. Just no, don't go there because that's
Yeah.
not a world you want to live in. And literally, people can occupy and do occupy the same physical space, but they live in completely different worlds.
Mm.
Completely different worlds. And that's why often when those worlds collide, people can't understand each other. Well, no, that's not how the world is. The world is full of compassion and love and support for my fellow beings. No, it's not. It's about accumulating money and being on top and controlling everybody.
Yeah.
Mm, those are not compatible worlds.
I suppose that's kind of in a way because some people think of like competition in a different way. Like, I think, oh, we're all doing the same thing. The more of us doing this, the better it is, and there's enough for everyone out there and so on. Whereas some people will be like, oh, I'm not going to do that and I'm not going to interview this person or I'm not going to do this because they might take away my audience. And if I do this, then they might compete and so on. There's so much of that, which I'm finding more and more. But there are those people that are like, no, anything you need, just call me, whatever it is. And so it is true what you say. There are different people that some will help you. There's a lot of people that will, but there are a lot that are quite, no, it's,
They live in paucity. They're afraid all the time. And
ah,
and yeah, and it's really awful. There's a wonderful story about in the 1940s in New York. There were two major department stores, and of course they were fierce competitors with one another. And it was
mm,
holiday time, and so they were just duking it out for who could get the most customers. Well, one of the store Santas said to someone who was looking, a mom who was looking for something, try the other store. I think they have it.
oh,
And so sure enough they did, and she went over there and got it, but she loved that Santa.
yeah,
And she developed a following for this other store now, right? And first they were going to fire the Santa for when they found out, what happened. And then they realized that somebody at the other store caught on and they were sending them to them. So they were cross-referencing and they had the
ah,
biggest Christmas they'd ever had
wow,
because they were in plenty and they weren't afraid.
that
And
is,
they could say, well, we have this. So if I say to you, we have this, you might tell your friends who need that. But they have that. So go get that.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
send all your friends to us for this. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Now, that is something that folks who live in paucity don't understand. It's for them very binary win lose. That's it. That's all they
yeah,
got. They can't imagine win win. They cannot seriously. I know this may be difficult to understand, but they seriously cannot process the idea of win win.
Yeah, and it's incredible you say this because when you're starting out as an entrepreneur as well, you do have to be careful who you take advice from, right? Because if you speak to
Yes.
people that aren't thinking plenty and so on, they can give you advice. So I have taken advice from, some family members, and it's just because they, think logically, they have never kind of gone out there and put themselves out there. So I understand that. And they are family. So you think, okay, sometimes it's okay to talk to them about how I'm feeling and so on. But, they are kind of like, oh, wouldn't it just be easier to do this or go back in a job and, have it easy and just make your life easier? And so you do have to be careful, don't you, who you get advice from, even from family members that think in a different way. So it's really good that you mentioned these two areas because it's very true.
And very challenging. We
Yeah.
tend to, well, we learn our skills of intimate love from our family,
Hmm.
for good or for ill, depending on
Hmm.
how healthy our family is. Okay.
Hmm.
And then we tend to take those things out into the world and apply them. And again, for good or for ill, that's how our life begins to look unless we
Yeah.
make some changes. Okay. So I get folks who've come in to me all the time who are having some difficulty with something. And they'll say, well, my mother said blah, blah, blah. Or my dad told me to blah, blah, blah. This is how you fix your marriage. You do this. No, no, you fix your marriage this way. And I always say to them, with due respect to whatever school of psychology they graduated from, let me just say that was terrible advice. That's the absolute worst thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
So when you take advice, don't take advice from your family. Take support from your family. Take love from your family.
Yeah.
Maybe take money sometimes from your family if they're willing to pitch in,
Yeah.
but don't take advice from your family because they have an agenda, they have an attachment to you.
Yeah.
Go to an expert who's a neutral third party, which is why we have therapists, right? They're
Yeah.
outside the circle of what we're, and they have that, well, the good ones have that bird's eye view who can look and say, oh, I see. Okay, here's all the pieces.
Yeah.
I always think of it like a puzzle. Someone comes into my office with a problem
Mm.
and they begin to tell me things. And I see all these puzzle pieces and they start to link together, click, 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 click. And they all go in and they'll say, I'll tell them what's wrong. And they'll say, how did you do that so fast? You can't,
Mm.
you don't know me. How could you do that fast? I said, well, okay, let's say you went in to see your physician and you had chicken pox.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they couldn't figure out in the first 5 or 10 minutes that you had chicken pox. What would you think of them? Well, I think they were a terrible doctor. I know, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is no different. This is not about knowing you and what your hobbies are. This is about seeing the pieces that are presenting and how I can put
Mm.
that picture together. So when you create a business, it's very much like that. What
Mhm.
are the pieces? How do I put them together? And what guidance can I get from experts? And what people do I need dressed in black pulling strings to make the vision come true? And you've got a recipe for success. And if you remember also that little quantum jumping exercise I talked about, think about to yourself that woman or man behind the door. What would he do? What would she say? How would she solve this problem? How would he follow up about this or that with such a client? You know, you'll know what to do. Or another way to look at it is when you're scared,
Mm.
you will be. When you're scared, it's normal to be scared. Fear
Yeah.
is either a wonderful teacher or a horrible master.
Mm.
So when you're scared, ask yourself, what would I do if I weren't afraid? And you'll know exactly what to do.
Is it the same? And would it be the same treatment for being anxious?
Yeah,
So, yeah, and having self-doubt that something's not going to work. So it's the same approach that you would use for all three, essentially.
it's important to remember feelings are not facts. And people will make an assumption, decide it's a fact, and then live their life based on the fact that came from a fallacy. They forgot about
Mhm.
this fallacy part. They just made it up. I'm scared
Yeah.
about this. So this is now true. So this is what I'm going to do. And this is what my life looks. No, Not a good plan. Feelings are feelings. Like, okay, I'm scared to walk on a balance beam. And you decide, okay, I can't walk on balance beams, so I avoid gymnastics altogether.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I can walk on a balance beam or not. I'm just afraid about it right now. So I need to go look into that. You can either be phobic or counterphobic. Now,
Mm.
phobic means you're scared of something and you avoid it. Counterphobic means you identify what you're afraid of and you say, yeah, I got to go explore that. I got to go see what that looks like. Now, ultimately, it may not be what you want to do,
Yeah.
but you're no longer afraid. You can make a decision. This is not for me. Not because I'm scared of it. It's just not for me.
Mm.
Living in fear is no way to live.
No, no. What if there is that element though where it's kind of like, is this business going to work? That is probably one of the main topic areas that I get and that people message me about. They're just not certain if it's going to work. And they've said that they've got advice where people say, no, don't think like that, think it's going to work. But that's easier said than done. So with people thinking like that, I mean, that comes into kind of fear and other elements. But what advice would you give to people that felt in that way and thought that way?
As I often say to my patients, embrace your internal wrongness. Be
Yeah.
comfortable with failure. You can't have success without it. It's not possible.
Wow.
Not to mention the fact that you don't learn anything from success. You learn things from failure. When things don't go well, that's when you say, "Oh, wow, I need to rethink this or retool or, do something else." But it doesn't mean the end any
Mhm.
more than death means the end. It's just a point of change.
That is incredible advice. So, in terms of, I've got another question. In terms of like the different psychology approaches, like how do they like enhance or help your mental health and your mental wellness? So, what kind of approaches or strategies do you do when you integrate different psychological aspects?
Another excellent question. Well, when
Mm.
I was in one of my many graduate programs, I'm either confused or sadomasochistic, however you want to look at it. But when I was in one of my graduate programs, my one of my professors said to me, Miss Cochran, what is your school of psychology? What personality theory do you adhere to? I said, well, actually, Dr. Smith, I take a rather eclectic approach. I don't try to fit people into theories. I try to pull pieces from theories that fit the person. And he
Mm.
puts his glasses down on the end of his nose and he says, Miss Cochran, you are not eclectic, you are confused.
I was going to say, I bet he loved you.
But the answer is he was it's very important to learn the different theories. I mean, I'm not saying that that isn't valid, but you can't always put everybody into a convenient pocket.
Yeah.
And so it's important to be able to have a number of things in your tool belt to draw from to help
Mhm.
people. Because you are an intellectual person, you're an emotional person, you're a spiritual person, you're complicated.
Mm.
And I want to be able to have something that's going to reach each part of you. Now, people will say, well, how do you decide what to do? I don't. You tell me. I know. What an
Mhm.
easy job I have. I just show up. You tell
Yeah.
me what to do, and then I do it. And the way it works is it's kind of like teaching your kids about sex. People often ask me that question. Well, when do I talk to my kids? When they ask you, and they
Mhm.
will. So where do
Yeah.
babies come from? Okay, they're ready to hear. Now, depending on where they are developmentally, they're ready to hear more or less detail,
Mm.
right? But usually what happens is a kid will, when they're little, say 5 or so, and they'll say, well, where do babies come from? Oh, they live inside mommy's bodies and they grow in there and then they come out and then they're you and all your friends. Oh, okay, I'm cool. And then a
Yeah.
little later on, they come back and say, well, now wait a minute. How do those babies
Figure
get in there?
things out.
There's some details I need to know. How do they get in there and how do they eat and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So then they're ready for more information. Okay. So when I'm with a patient and they come to me and they say, blah, blah, blah. This is my concern. That's where they're ready to start. And that's the information I provide for them. And then they come back later. Am I going to make that happen? Ah, okay, you're ready for more. So then we go to the next level. Or you're ready to pivot now to you're having a spiritual crisis about why am I here and who am I and what does this all mean? Or more an ego thing about, God, my family. I've come to terms with the fact that they're very, very pathological and I feel horrible and alone and I don't know how to navigate that. Or I may work with someone who's had a near-death experience, and you come back from those different, and they
I
have to learn how,
bet.
yeah, they have to learn how to navigate their life. Got some amazing, amazing people I've worked with in that regard, many, many, many over the years. So they have to figure out how do I, this beautiful world of light that I went to, and so full of love and acceptance and peace, and now I come back into this world which is pretty much antithetical to that. How do
Yeah.
I make that transition? How do I, who am I now? Who do I become? How do I act?
Yeah. Wow. Incredible. So another question we've got here is how do we get like a positive mindset? Because it's really difficult to be positive all the time, and then life throws you some curveballs, and then your mindset goes back, to a bit negative. So people know how to maintain this positive mindset.
You know what? It's so easy. You're going to laugh at me.
Go.
But go ahead, because my shoulders are broad. I'm used to that. I'm busy laughing at myself. So yeah, it's good. Okay. A gratitude practice.
Okay,
Now,
I heard that.
now let's talk there. Let's talk on two levels about that. One is neurobiological and one is psychological.
Hmm.
So if you do a gratitude practice the way I'm going to teach you right now, you can rewire your brain in 28 days.
Okay.
Because you got to think about your brain. Again, brains are so cool, right? I keep going back to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Brains are like highways, and there are tons of roads that you create with repetitive behavior. So if you spend all your time saying life sucks and then you die, I can't have what I want, it's not going to work out for me, nothing ever works out for me, la 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 la, your brain gets to the point where you don't even consider any alternatives anymore.
Yeah.
It's that's it.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
a gratitude practice, you do it in the morning and you do it right before you fall asleep. And you just go through the list of things you're grateful for. Now, depending on your circumstances, it may be a short list to start with.
Hmm.
I don't care. I'm grateful. I'm so happy and grateful I have my purple dinosaur socks.
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah.
I don't care anywhere. But you'll find as you go through it that your list will get longer and longer, and you'll begin to be able to now see, oh, look at that gift. Oh, look at that thing. Oh, look at, all that. And pretty soon, you'll begin to notice subtle things like, oh, that used to really bother me. Doesn't bother me so much anymore.
Yeah.
Or she used to be really annoying to me. And now, live and let live.
Yeah.
Okay. And you begin to see possibilities. Things come up and you think, oh, well, normally I would have walked away from that, but I'm kind of curious. I think I want to take that a little farther.
Yeah.
Or even with parenting. Um, the idea that there are things, conflicts, in any intimate relationship, you have conflicts, and you do with your children as well. So they'll do some ornery thing or other, and normally that would really spark,
Yeah.
and and suddenly you go, hmm, I wonder what they're needing right now that they would do that. I think I'll ask them, hey, what's going on, buddy? What what's going on that prompted you to make that decision?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're working together.
Hmm.
Well, I was mad. Yeah, I get mad too. But
Yeah.
the thing is, when you get mad, it's not okay to hit people.
Mm.
You talk about it.
Yeah.
And I always say to when I work with couples, never argue when you're mad. And people say, what? That's crazy. That's when you do argue. I said, I know. So if you're angry about something, go have time with yourself.
Yeah.
Think and feel and process. and then come back and say, I'm frustrated about this. I don't understand why you did that. This is a problem for me. I want to work with you toward resolution.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, everything gets so much easier.
Yeah. They also
So,
say never make a decision as well, right? When you're,
absolutely. So, again, the practice is simply before you go to bed and first thing in the morning, you just say out loud, or you can write it down if you want to. This motion of moving your hand repetitively releases something called GABA in your brain. It's
oh,
a lovely substance that makes you have happy brain. It's very calming and relaxing. Aminobutyric acid is that's why we call it GABA because it's too hard to say that. So,
yeah.
um, when you release that GABA, it's very soothing and calming. So if you're anxious or feeling bad, copying something longhand, knitting, crocheting, coloring is good. Any of those kind of repetitive behaviors will help you
Oh, yeah.
calm. So if you want to have a fight with your partner, go color first, and then, and then come back.
And then,
You'll You'll resolve the conflict, have a great picture that you colored, and everyone goes home happy. So again, repeating to yourself, either in writing or verbally, I'm so happy and grateful that I got to be on Stacy's show today. I'm so happy
yeah,
and grateful for my 3 therapy dogs. I'm so happy and grateful that my husband loves me and I love him. I'm so
yeah,
happy and grateful I live on a mountain in a beautiful place. I'm so happy and grateful for ice cream,
yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah.
I'm so happy and grateful for chocolate. That's a
Mm,
big one.
chocolate
Uh,
thing.
so, and it's different for every person. And
Mm,
people, again, will often say, well, that's just silly. And I say back to you again, words create neurochemicals in your brain. Neurochemicals, neurochemicals in your brain create thoughts and feelings. It is a closed system, and your brain and your gut and your heart are facilitated by your vagal nerve, and they communicate all day long about what's going on.
yeah.
You take good care of your gut, you take good care of your brain, you take good care of your brain, you take good care of your gut. You see my point.
Yeah.
And you take care of those two, and your heart functions well. Because if your heart isn't working well, you're more prone to dementia. So all of
Mm,
those, again, is puzzle pieces, isn't it?
yeah.
All the pieces work to create this amazing machine that is the body we live in.
Wow, that is amazing advice because I've tried to do it and I do that to be honest with you. But I remember like in the early days, I think it was a few years ago when I was trying to do it. But when you've got bills mounting up and so on, it is quite difficult because you're trying to, so you really have to try and force yourself to do it, but it really does work and it does make you feel better. So I am an advocate for that. I try and do that every day as well, just to keep my mind positive. But it does work. You are absolutely spot on with that.
Well,
It's
to that point, remember that worrying is praying for what you don't want.
hmm,
You're putting energy to what you don't want to happen. And guess what you
yeah,
get? More of what you
more
don't
of
want to
it.
happen. Now
Yeah.
back to what you just said, which is a really, really good point. When you're frightened, when you're worried, when you've got bills, when you got this and that,
Mm,
sometimes people advocate, oh, just walk across water, just be sort of a bliss ninny. Nah, don't do that. But because you got their bills, right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
if you're thinking from your hippocampus, and there are two little almond-shaped things back in the back of your head here, and that's the part of your brain that sends out the signal to release adrenaline
Hmm.
and cortisol, which is your stress hormone. Now, cortisol is often given a bad rap. We need that for blood pressure and wake sleep cycles and all that, but too much of it,
Yeah.
along with a lot of adrenaline, we create a chemical cascade that's only intended from a biological standpoint to be used in an emergency. But what happens is every day is an emergency. Every problem is an emergency. And we're releasing and releasing and releasing and releasing. And we developed really not good neural highways up there. Everything's a crisis. Everything's terrifying. And so if you have responsibilities that are piling up and you're frustrated and you're full of cortisol and adrenaline and you're thinking from back here, your prefrontal cortex, where your executive functioning happens, shuts down. So you're not going to figure out how to pay those bills. You're not going
Yeah.
to figure out how to negotiate with your creditors. You're not going to figure out anything.
Yeah.
You're just going to sit in your pot of misery
Yeah.
and swirl it around. So that's where our gratitude practice comes in. It's not pretending things are fine when they're not. It's looking at what you're grateful for, which gets you from out of here and into here, and then the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, that is so true. It's like I may have all this, but I am grateful that I'm healthy and my kids are healthy and I've got a roof over my head. Like you say, even some of kind of the little things or the things that you wouldn't usually talk about. But yeah, I've done it before, and it really does change the way it changes your whole day, essentially, when you do it in the morning, and like you say, doing it overnight. So I am an advocate for that. I completely agree. So just on coming up to kind of the last question. So what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are experiencing all of this fear, and that look, they really want to find their passion, identify their passion, they want to overcome all of these fears and self-doubt that they've got, and they really want to start. What advice would you give them? Would it be good to sort out the mindset first, or should they
First,
just go for it?
target your goal, be very
Okay.
specific. Determine what kind of life you have. Surround yourself with positive people who are successful at what you've done.
Oh,
Take their advice. If you want to be a banker, don't hang out in bakeries. Hang
yeah,
out in banks, right? So find those people, and again, make sure that your social network is very positive and supportive. So if your mom is constantly saying, "No, you have to get a real job. You can't do
yeah,
this or that," yeah, you need to not talk to your mom about that for a while.
yeah, yeah.
Now, if you think you're going to become a brain surgeon without going to medical school, we got another kind of problem. But I see that sometimes. So, but if you have a dream and you have a plan, then be specific about your plan. Surround yourself with positive people who know
Mm,
what they're doing. Don't watch bad things. Stay away from the news. Don't watch bad things on TV,
yeah,
or stream or whatever. Surround yourself with laughter and fun. Uh, Exercise, really important. You don't have to go to the gym. Just walk. Just
yeah,
walk.
yeah,
You need at least 10 to 20 minutes of sunlight every day to stimulate your mitochondria, which help you make protein, which help everything work positively. And ask yourself, what would I do if I weren't afraid? And then do it.
that is amazing advice. It's good to hear, and just kind of the flow of what people should do and how that they can get their mindset in the right place, and then the journey through. And how did an advice for people that kind of want to do what it is that you do, how do you approach it, and how did you grow and get to where you are today?
Well, as you can probably already tell, I'm someone who rather bucks the system a bit.
Mhm.
So, not everybody wants to do that. Uh, but basically, you have to figure out why. Why do I want to do this?
Yeah,
Where is this really going to take me? Do I just want to have doctor in front of my name, or is it, do I want to, am I doing this because I want to be famous? Or is there some place I need to go to take my love and my knowledge and apply it?
mm,
And that's what's crucial to start with. Then figure out, okay, what hoops do I have to jump through, academic licensing and all that stuff
yeah,
to get there?
yeah,
And then again, I have people who are graduate students who come to me all the time. And they'll
yeah,
say, "Oh, Dr. C, my dissertation, da 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 da." And I'll say, "You know what? There are two kind of dissertations, perfect and finished. Which do you
yeah.
want?" Well, finished. Okay. Then shut up and graduate. You can do that, right? People get stuck in circles of fear
Yeah,
and they don't know how to step out. I often talk about it, the Mobius strip of destruction, right? We get this, and I'll compliment people. I'll say, that is a beautiful piece of pathology right there. If
mm,
there was a pathological Olympics, that would definitely be a gold. So
yeah,
you have to decide, yeah, I don't want to be in the pathological Olympics. I want to cut the Mobius strip, step out of it.
hmm,
We create our own jails. And we often spend so much time focusing on the tensile strength of the bars and the layout of the floor plan. We forget. that we have the
Mm.
keys to the lock inside the pocket all the time. All we have to do is pull them out and open the door. And if we've convinced ourselves we can't, then we stay stuck.
Yeah, I was going to come on just my last question, sorry, but there's so much I want to ask you. But in terms of the stuck feeling, so this is
Yeah.
a lot that I get a lot of questions on because people feel stuck when it comes to
Yeah.
transitioning out of a full-time job into a business. They want it, they're hungry for it, they're ready, but they've got a family or bills to pay and they can't
Mhm.
just do the transition. How would one approach that? Is that to be more organized or is there a mental work that they should do? And
Both. First of all, in your initial plan that I talked about being very specific,
mhm,
if you are balancing two jobs,
yeah,
and that's not uncommon for an entrepreneur when they're starting out, their journey. You and your partner, if you have one, have to work out, okay, what's our burn rate? What do we need to have to make our world go?
yeah,
And what can each of us contribute to this? And maybe one person's contribution is just taking care of kids and the house and all that kind of stuff, freeing the other person up to go out and do whatever they need to do. Or maybe they both have jobs and they contribute. I mean, it's your formula. It's your personal formula. But you figure out, okay, what do we have to survive? And if I can work just enough at my 9 to 5 to make that amount, all the rest of my energy is over here. And as this pot begins to fill, and I begin to see, oh, we're approaching this number that I set up that we have to have, that's when you cut the strings. So I'm
mm.
out. I can do it.
So you wouldn't advise people to just up and go and take the risk. You'd say no, do it in a way where you're saving
It's
and
another way to do it. Absolutely. And if you're set up that way,
yeah,
if you have enough backup savings or whatever to just do it, sure, that's fine. Most of us, though, don't.
yeah,
Most people, but again, you don't necessarily have to, for example, you might be someone who has a job, a 9 to 5 that you really don't like. So you decide you're going to do something that is less taxing for you, but
mm,
brings in enough money so that you have the energy to build your business over here.
yeah,
So let's say I was a corporate executive. As this in this position, I can't build my whatever it is. So
yeah,
you either go out and find investors
yeah,
and then you cut the ties and go, or you say, all right, I'm gonna go to work at Home Depot for a while. And when I'm done at 5 o'clock, I'm done. And then I go build my world.
yeah, yeah,
But what's important is to pay attention to your mental health. We have to be sure there's enough going into the machine so that what your output is doesn't drain you and destroy you.
yeah. That is, and that's where it can be quite difficult. And like you say, you do have to have that mental awareness to know that you're not doing too much and you're not, yeah, because it is, like you said earlier, some people do 2 3 jobs, and I know people that have done that to fund this business, and then so that it's non-stop, but people do it. But you've got to have some mental strength there, because to do all of that and to not see anything initially, because it takes time to build, maybe you've got to have that mental strength. So it's good to prepare mentally as well, is what you're saying also.
Deadlines are important. I'm going to do this for this
Wow.
period of time. And if I'm not getting what I want, then I need to pivot somehow.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because if you think, oh, I'm going to be doing this forever. No, 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 no. You'll end up a crispy critter. That's not the plan. You have to
Mm,
say, okay, this is my strategy for now. I'm going to do it for this period of time. Then I'm going to check in. Where am I? Am I making progress? Am I at a standstill? Because if you're at a standstill, something needs to be tweaked.
yeah.
Something needs to, go a different direction. And again, with the other things we talked about, surround yourself with people who are successful at what you do. And go to them and say, yeah, I'm stuck. And they'll say, oh, yeah, I got stuck there too. And here's some people you can talk to, and here's some things you can. Golden.
Yeah.
But don't ask your mom. Unless she's one of those people. I mean, she could be.
It's
But,
like,
your mom, she is, it's so interesting. This is a tough topic, but I was at a seminar and we were going over black box recordings, the last thing that pilots say before they die,
Oh,
because that's recorded in the airplane.
yeah.
And you hear them being pilots saying, okay, I've done the flaps and I've done this and I've flicked that to the last second they're doing that. But the last thing, oh, this is hard to say. The last thing they often do is call for their moms.
Oh, God.
So, and that's not to say that dads aren't wonderful, nurturing creatures, but for most of us, we've been socialized for mom to have that role.
Yeah.
And we call out for comfort. We call out for that, you know. So I'm not in any way defaming moms. Moms are wonderful, wonderful beings, but they're not necessarily the best business advisors unless they
No.
happen to be in the same business as you're in. You know,
I have to agree. I have
that kind of
to
thing.
agree.
Uh, so
Yeah.
just pay attention to where you're getting your advice and guidance from, but surround yourself with positive people
Yeah.
who say, okay, what a clever idea. What's
Mm.
your plan? And by the way, uh, pivoting again, that's a terrific way to raise your kids.
Yeah.
When your kids come to you with a problem and they say, especially as they get older, Socratic, as in Socrates, is the best way to go. And so they say, well, blah, 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 blah is happening. And you say, wow, how do you feel about that? And then
Mm.
they talk about how they feel and you say, okay, so what are your thoughts? What's your plan? Well, I don't know. And then the parent has the opportunity to say, well, have you thought about this? Or maybe think about that? Or
Mm.
this other thing? I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? And then there's this, discussion back and forth. But there's no, now what you need to do is da 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 da. And
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course, of course, I'm going to do the opposite.
Hmm.
But I'm trying to, as an adolescent in particular, starting around middle school time, which would be like 13, 12, 13. I'm trying to individuate. I'm trying to become a self separate
Yeah.
from you. So when you waggle your finger at me and tell me what to do, I'm going to ignore that advice. I'll go to my peers who know nothing about anything.
Yeah.
But if you ask me questions, then I will consider what you have to say. And it's a very dramatic turnaround. In fact, one of my favorite moments, whether it was as a teacher or as a therapist, is when I hear some of my kiddos repeating what they've been through. Like
Yeah.
there's a little girl I worked with years ago, and she was about 7, and she could not read a word. And everybody just kind of given up on her. So I did a thorough evaluation. I figured out she wasn't so much visual or auditory in her learning, but she was tactile kinesthetic. She needed to feel things to learn them. So I
Yeah.
started making these cards, these 3x5 cards, and I'd write on them with glue, whatever her new word was, and then we put glitter on it. And so she had this box of 3x5 cards with words in it. And so we would play games sometimes and practice the words. And an important part of playing with children is to teach them how to win and how to lose, both.
Mm.
So on this particular day, I remember I lost really badly. I said, oh, well, I didn't get any words today. I didn't do a very good job. It was pretty bad. So she's putting her little cards back in the box and she closes the box very primly and she says, Miss Cochran, you can take my box home this weekend. And if you practice, I know next time you play the game, you can win.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, my heart.
Yeah.
That was that was more important, Stacey, than anything else
Oh.
I taught her is if you practice, if you're consistent, if you work on it, if you create those neural pathways, you can win.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. It's true. No, look, you have given some incredible advice to our audience, and I just got to thank you for coming on because that it's looking at a different perspective and just being honest and just looking at it from another way, and people need to hear certain things because there's a lot going on mentally. There's a lot going on in the world at the moment. So this has been such an incredible interview. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It was lots of fun, and you have a lovely audience.
Yes, yes, they are. They're very, very engaging. Very, we like to know, we like to ask questions, we like to get the most out of every
I love
interview,
that.
basically,
That's
the most that we
fabulous.
can get. No, but
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. And you are in the States, in the
I am.
mountains. So I will be leaving you to go back to the mountains, which is incredible. Hopefully I'll be over there soon. But thank you so much for your time. And again, really appreciate it.
Thank you too. Be
Thank
safe and be
you.
well.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.